Hi everyone, and we are happy to welcome you on the last event of this Pochen Symposium. My name is Mykhailo Bogachov. I'm Ukrainian researcher in AI ethics and musical creator, and together with me, Anastasiia Kalyta will co-moderate this panel. And Anastasiia is Ukrainian journalist and art criticist. And so, for this panel, we will focus on the topic of antifragility, which I guess was mentioned before, one of the first panels. And today we're talking about antifragility with respect to Russian-Ukrainian war. So what even is antifragility? Like how it usually is defined is it's just a property of a system that becomes more and more capable as a result of stresses and failures. So the worse, the better, so to speak. And Ukraine, which is a highly individualized and secular society with institutions which are maybe not super strong, Ukraine astounded absolutely everyone with the unexpected levels of altruism, solidarity, and willing of people to put their life at risk for the common good, which happened after Russia invaded Ukraine on 24th of February for a second time. And like how we approach it, we think that it is a good way to kind of reflect about Ukrainian society at large and Ukrainian art scene in particular through the prism of the topic of antifragility. But we also have the topic of institutions for this talk, and why institutions. The Western Europe is not anti-fragile, it is robust. It exemplifies like a property when under stress, society aspires to remain unchanged. And like, as we see right now, to mostly preserve the life that people used to have like, before the war in Ukraine, before the war in Syria and other catastrophic and very evil events. And so from Ukrainian perspective, we kind of are a bit wary of being very much institutionalized because a lot of Ukrainians believe that institutions at time are too insensitive ethically, they may be too risk averse, they may lack kind of political imagination. But nevertheless, we all know that Ukraine also perseveres partly because of institutional assistance. And also we know that a lot of grassroots organizations that saved Ukraine in the beginning of the full-scale war, right now they are undergoing rapid institutionalization. And in the end, we also know that what I know and what you know about the war is heavily influenced by what institutions tell us as mediators. So we have this kind of pharmaconish situation with institutions and robustness and Ukrainian society which tries to become institutionalized, but still preserve its antifragility and its attention to kind of most fundamental emotional things in life. So that's our focus today. And today we would like to discuss what comes before institutions affect how we react to this war and maybe to other events which exemplify like the most fundamental evil possible. Yeah. So.
Hello, everyone, again. First of all, I want to thank that it's an honor to us, for me and Misha to close this Pochen Symposium. And I hope that you will enjoy our talk about antifragility. And I will be more poetic than Misha, I think, yeah. And I want to say that what is antifragility for us? And me and Mykhailo and our very close circle of friends started to think about this when I think actually full-scale invasion started. And for me, the sources of antifragility lays in very simple things in everyday life or inside us, I think. And we all have different experiences of war, and still we're here. And even if we are in Ukraine or here, we still have something that didn't broke us, and Russia didn't broke us. Yeah, and today with us is Timur Dzhafarov. He's a Ukrainian soldier and experimental musician. who is actually cannot come today, but we were trying to bring him in Chemnitz. And he is now in southern Ukraine on the positions. And also today we have Waldemar Tatarczuk, who is an artist and also a curator of one of the historical galleries in Poland, Labyrinth. And also Tatiana Kochubinska, our colleague and curator and researcher from Ukraine. So yeah, let's start. And I want to start with miracles. And I want to ask you, and I think maybe Timur will answer first, what miracles you've seen in yourself or maybe in others in the first chapters of War?
Thank you. Thank you, first of all, for having me, at least virtually. And of course, we really tried to make it happen for me to come. But sadly, I have a job to do, and there's basically no one to replace me. If I were to leave even for 1 or 2 days, there's really no one who could do what I have to do. And to answer your question, I think one of the most interesting things has been the fact that in the military, I can basically relate to pretty much everyone I meet. Like every Ukrainian man that is here, that is defending our country, is more or less like me somewhere deep inside. You know, there is some kind of moral fiber and moral kind of strength in everyone that is essentially the same, you know, because as someone who is from Kiev and someone who is kind of an arts type person, you know, making music, experimental music that is for weird kinds of audiences around the world. I never really felt that I would be able to relate so well to basically the ordinary man, you know, even though I am ordinary, he is ordinary as well. Everyone is ordinary, but we have very different backgrounds. And I think the most surprising thing has been that all of this background information, all of this experience can be set aside, you know, to just focus on something human, focus on loving Ukraine, on wishing to defend our families and our friends. And that is kind of surprising, you know. I thought I would be more of an outcast, more of a weirdo, you know, but I kind of fit in, you know, and that to me is a surprise, to be honest. One other thing, I guess, is I was, to be honest, surprised that I was able to do a lot of things that I did, you know, just physically, because there was a lot of really difficult things.
Timur,
we can hear you really. There's something with. Can you repeat?
You just close my microphone.
Is the microphone? Is it working? Is it okay? No?
It's very muffled.
Yeah, can we try this one? I've switched
great.
to the laptop microphone. Oh shit. Well, I was using the earbuds microphone, sorry. So what I was trying to say, I don't know if you heard me, but my main point was that the surprise, I guess, the miracle was that every Ukrainian is basically the same person at heart. You know, we're very similar and we can set aside our differences, cultural background and social, you know, economical, whatever. And we can basically get along, you know. That was a surprise to me because as someone who makes electronic experimental music, lives in Kiev, you know, reads weird books and etc. I have nothing in common with, you know, a potato farmer from the south of Ukraine. And yet we can get along because there is this crucial element of loving your country, of thinking that fascism is bad, of thinking that Russians are truly evil and they should be destroyed, you know, and this kind of thing, it just helps you get along. I thought that I would be an outcast, and I'm not really. No, I'm fine. Another thing that I wanted to say is that just a lot of really physically intensive, labor-intensive tasks, including, you know, stuff that people do at the front lines, stuff that people have to do every day, you know, carry heavy weapons and move in the mud, in the rain. It's raining right now, by the way, and in the snow when it's freezing cold, you still manage to get your work done.
Yeah.
And I was surprised that I was physically strong enough to do a lot of that stuff. But
Yeah.
it turns out, when you have no choice, you kind of make it work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Waldemar, what's your take on what was your miracles? What you experienced?
First thing I would like to say it is that I'm very happy that I can take part in panel discussion in Germany as the only one Polish person with only Ukrainians. So for me it is very important because Ukraine and Ukrainian art scene is very important for me from the for dozen of years. And last year, February was for me very difficult because on the 24th of February started full-scale war, and 1 week later I left my job. While I was fired from the gallery where I was director, and for me it was so difficult situation, not because I from the March I didn't have job, but because I lost a tool to work with Ukrainian artists, and it is one thing. And now, after almost not, I don't know, 15, 16, 18 months of full-scale war, it's difficult to talk about miracles because what I see is, for me it is very very sad and painful that the subject of the war in Ukraine, it is not already on the first page of newspapers, on the first minutes of TV news, and generally, we can hear, and you probably in German hear it more often, even more often than in Poland, that people are so exhausted with this war. And I always ask how do you think how exhausted are people living in Ukraine? And I don't know, what to say, what could be miracle now, but I'm waiting for a miracle which can change this situation. And so I started from the sad things which are I think that the most important for me, and I'm trying, because I came back to the gallery and trying to work like I did, more than I was doing before with Ukrainian artists, and traveling a lot to Ukraine to meet with them, because we are talking quite often about supporting, how to help them, but I see that very often it is like that we know how to support, we know how to help, but it is very rare situation then when we are asking how to help you, how to support you. That's why it is very important to travel to Ukraine, to talk with people, to be with them.
And yeah, thank you very much. I want to switch to Tatiana. And actually, we were talking about this before this talk about volunteering as a miracle. So, and it wasn't surprised that everyone started to help in the first days of war, but actually also volunteering becomes some kind of therapy, and which is also some kind of miracle, I think. And yeah, Tatiana, please continue.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for the. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
thank you for the invitation, and thank you for coming. And Timur, thank you so much for joining, because I think anyhow it's very, very personal, but it's completely different perception of being in a safe position and being and talking like directly from the front line. And so I'm trying to like justify myself and talking and thinking that I'm on the cultural front, but anyhow I think that it's like incomparable experience. So thank you so much for joining. And talking about the miracles that we could, or I could personally discover in myself, I think it was a very difficult question, and it has taken a while, because on the one hand, I don't want to talk about banalities that like life will never be the same as before, because it's something that we read from books, but again, like, and also the discourse of the Second World War has always instilled till the full-scale invasion was very much present in Ukrainian society, and you're always thinking about this division of the world into the before and after. But I think that for me, the miracle was, like, it's not like miracle, but discovery, because how different forms of acceptance of certain cliches and statements have been changed. Because if I could recall, like, a situation of 10 years ago, or even 8 years ago, during the revolution, that such statements like glory to heroes, or death to enemies, or Ukraine is above everything, for me they seemed back then very much claustrophobic and nationalistic, and I couldn't imagine that I could say like Ukraine über alles, because you know there is this like very strong connotation with the history, and it's not something that you could say it aloud, because it seemed like really claustrophobic in society. How can we again repeat this history? And I think it's something that changes in us, because today, like, it's becoming like a real physical request. And for me, it's also frightening, because on the one hand, frightening because I can say death to enemies, and I can automatically, as a crowd of people saying, glory to Ukraine, glory to heroes, it's something that was not acceptable for me before. But today, with this full-scale invasion, like these things which seemed claustrophobic, they're becoming a new norm. And that is why it's also frightening, like, nevertheless, if we are trying to keep humanity during the war, it's not possible, that these inhuman and insane things are within us. And of course, I think that for Timur and other people who are like directly on the front, it's everyday reality. And I mean, this is like a changes in perception that I observed.
Yeah. Thanks for this. And with miracles, obviously, I think we all kind of have some personal miracles, perhaps not related to any war or any kind of terrible thing. But I think what is common about any kind of miracle is that it is very hard to communicate, and it's just very hard to reconcile with other parts of our reality, which is kind of more rational, more kind of institutional, more settled. And what I would propose to talk next is like how do we even communicate those experiences, and how can we work with institutions, broadly speaking. I mean media, I mean NGOs, and I mean, like, for example, like art institutions as well for us, which mostly depend on in how they work on very kind of rigid rules. For example, like, what I mean by this is that a lot of Ukrainians, they are critical of institutions which let's say, invite Russian creators to create exhibitions about the war, or invite, let's say, like Russian speakers to speak about Ukraine on behalf of Ukrainians. And like sometimes we can think that, well, it's just because the director of that museum doesn't like Ukraine, or it's because they kind of have their own personal agenda. But from my perspective, maybe it's not that simple, and I have this suspicion that maybe it's just something about the kind of orderly and very procedural way how an institution works. Maybe it has something to do with the fact that it is very hard to communicate stuff that may be counterintuitive, that may come across very surprising and very unfamiliar to a person whose institutions are founded by kind of how peaceful life works. So, like,
and maybe Waldemar can start.
Yeah, maybe Waldemar, maybe you can start.
I come back to miracles because one miracle is really very important. That now I see that Ukraine is really civil society, and what is important that because you said that about institutions. Of course, infrastructure for contemporary art is not so big. It is very small. It's little institutions in all the country, but artists support each other, and it was already before full-scale war, and now it is even more stronger, and it impressed me that it is like that, and there is because I was talking to artists who are abroad and who are in Ukraine, and I was thinking that maybe, and probably there is, some, how to say, different perspectives between them. But when I was talking with some Ukrainian artists living in Ukraine, and they were talking about artists who are abroad, that they are still engage in support of artists in the country. Not artists, but generally, Ukraine, also the army. And I always, thinking, because, it is very difficult for me to theorize. I am not theoretician. I think I am not curator. I am just artist who is engaged in practice, and I am mostly practitioner. And I still thinking about what to do practically, and I don't think about sophisticated curatorial concepts, because I think that it is not time for that. But very important is visibility, because we know that big Russian culture wars, it was known in the world, and there are many Ukrainian artists who are considered as Russian, but they were Soviet artists, but they are considered as Russian. And what is important now to work on visibility, that that this is country with art, with big art, and I'm trying to do that, in the gallery now, and and now I work on that exhibition with artists who are in the army, because of course when I'm talking with them, I very often hear that it's difficult to think about art when you are on the front line, or even in you are in the army. But I think that it is important to show them, and not to let to the audience to forget about them.
Yeah, that's an important point, and we will return a bit later to how to how to make art in those in the situation. But yeah, let's hear from Tatiana. Yeah, what's your take on how to make institutions recognize miracles, so to speak?
I think that with this you touched upon many different questions. Like, I don't really know to start, because it's like very much rhizomatic, and there are many different reasons, like of visibility, invisibility. But I also wanted to touch upon the thing that Waldemar mentioned about Ukraine. So basically, before the war, I think that one of the features of Ukraine institutional life, it was like exactly this decentration, because probably in the early 2000s, we were all, everybody wanted to go to Kyiv as a capital. But I think in the recent years, and just shortly before the full-scale invasion, I think that we had really a number of decentered initiatives all around the country, like in Dnipro, in Uzhgorod. It was Gem Factory, which is to open soon. It was supposed to be open in 2022, so it was like plenty of institutions, and we can really talk about this decentration. But also, thinking about the question of antifragility, like for me, I would really interpret antifragility like, on the one hand, we cannot negate that now we are in a very fragile and vulnerable situation, but exactly these grassroots initiatives, in my view, they form this anti-fragility situation. What happened, for example, with Ivano-Frankivsk, Assortimentna Kimnata, they have really become, they have shown these grassroots initiatives, in my view, they have shown that they might have more potential for producing this visibility abroad rather than some stable institutions like Dnipro Center for Contemporary Art, that during the war, for me, it was an example of the institution that can operate during the war and relating and responding to the needs of the situation of the country at war, or like, for example, Kyiv Biennial, which is still existing beyond the borders. So I think like exactly this grassroots initiative, they demonstrated the capacity to exist and to strengthen the situation and to bring this visibility. But I'm also talking from perspective because like it's already 1 year and a half of war, even more, and I've spent in Ukraine only 6 months. So it's like from my
moreover,
we
have now the beginning of Ukrainian Museum of Contemporary Art, which we didn't have.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, and so Timur.
Sorry. So I have. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
I have a couple of points to make. I think the term anti-fragility is certainly a very interesting thing to talk about, but for me personally, the experience has been that anti-fragility is not a result of any intrinsic quality of a system or of a group of people, but rather something that's born out of just an existential threat, because, for example, the Ukrainian military and things that I have done in the past are often governed by the fact that I know that if I don't do this, don't do that, then I will die or someone else will die, and it's just a question of do you want to die? Like, are you okay with being killed by Russians, or are you going to do everything that you can? You know, and in every situation, a lot of Ukrainians have chosen to do everything that they can. It's not necessarily a situation where Ukrainians were specifically, you know, wonderful or smart or somehow intrinsically better or more interesting, more resilient than other people. It's just, that's what happens when you point a gun at someone's head. You know, they will do everything to survive one way or another. And it's really not, I think it's a very sad term, anti-fragility. No, at least for me personally, that's how it feels for me. Because I understand that when it's applied to art institutions and media and museums and etc., it's different. But for me in the military, when I think about anti-fragility, I think about, you know, having to carry so much gear on me, on my back, and running through a path that was, you know, just between two fields that have like mines all over them. So you're not allowed to step to the left or to the right, even like one step, because you'll get your leg blown off or something. And you'll most likely die because no one's going to carry you. And that's what I remember about anti-fragility, because I never knew I could be physically carry this much gear. And I had a time limit on when I was going to be picked up with the armored vehicle, you know. So I had to get there by, you know, 5 minutes or something. And I had to run with like 100, I don't know, 100 kilograms. That's how it felt. But probably that's impossible. With a weight of, you know, a grown human being on me in equipment. And I had to run, and I didn't know I could do that, you know, but I did it because I just didn't want to die. There was no option for me to not do it. And I think anti-fragility in a lot of ways comes from that. It's not that Ukraine is special, even though it is, but it's more that Ukraine is the only country that is trying to not get, you know, nuked out of existence, just erased from the earth completely. Even though I know, you know, about other conflicts, and I do read the news, of course, I know about Palestine and Israel, but I think what's been happening to Ukraine is even more intense. You know? I've seen, by the way, a comparison between Israel and Ukraine, I think, in the news today, which someone said that, you know, it just shows how little progress the Ukrainian armed forces have made in 4 months versus what happened in Israel, you know. And I was very, of course, insulted, and I felt very kind of, I felt like this is a post that I want to react to, you know, and repost and tell why this is bullshit and why Ukraine is fighting versus a, you know, a nuclear superpower and not, and this conflict has been so long.
Yeah. So basically, this brings us back to the point that a lot of people like have some kind of in our kind of more peaceful situations governed by rule, we not always have the connection to kind of most fundamental things like what are your physical limits, what are your emotional limits, and yeah, we can like explain like this idea of anti-fragility in the context. Well, maybe it's not about like being robust. Maybe it's just about hitting some kind of universal limits. But I guess it actually plays out into the question that you had about.
I think let's switch to art in a more concrete way and talk about this, because art is always reacts on something that's happening, and catastrophes, crises, wars, and everything like. What difference maybe you can see in how Ukrainian artists reacts on this war? And for example, I don't know, maybe how artistic practices during World War II were different from ours today. And what do you think about this? Maybe some examples.
Tatiana, maybe.
I think it's hard to talk about differences because now we are perceiving this war here and now. Though, I mean, we cannot, on the one hand, we can pretend, or at least trying to always understand the other or to live through the experience of the other person, but I realized that I don't believe it anymore. So with this word, just understood like two rules that I made for myself, that don't judge and don't generalize, because we never know the situation of any individual. And that is why it's hard to analyze art which is happening here and now. Like at some point, sometimes I feel that I need a radical, like I think that art, first of all, it needs more time for reflection, or vice versa, it can be a very radical gesture. And for example, what's happening right now in Ukraine, there are some examples of the artworks which had very implicit nature, like for example, Katya Buchatska, who has produced a series of works. I can try to describe, it's like just abstract painting, landscape painting, which is just, I don't know, maroon or red color, but at the end what happens, she's using the soil as a pigment, and she takes the soil in some regions and some villages which were directly traumatized by the war, and the territories which were occupied and then de-occupied, and the artist, she traveled in these cities, and she just has taken this soil that has become a pigment to produce oil paints by herself. So basically she's not reproducing violence, but she's talking directly about the war, but in a very implicit way. So basically the knowledge about this becomes a testimony or a witness of this bloody landscape, which is basically the landscape who is the witnesses of all the crimes which are happening. But in historical perspective, I don't know, like being here in Germany, but I think that it was this generation, post-war generation, I think it's a variety of artists that like really brought incredible art, like which was born out of the defeat. I mean, their reconciliation and thinking about the history of the Second World War, like, I don't know, Anselm Kiefer and many German artists, but I think it was a different reflection. It's something that happened after the generation, like people who were born shortly after the war or during the war, and they rethought and reflected this, but it's hard to think about like art which is happening here now. But also you would always put a question, is there still space for making art? I mean, there are multiple perspectives.
Yeah, maybe it's just a question about like that right now artists are able to do more with the technologies that they have, to publish quickly, to use kind of some minimal resources to put together some artworks quickly, and perhaps it's just that before people weren't able to do that, and yeah, what they wanted to do just kind of perished. Yeah, and so Waldemar, what do you think about this topic, especially because I guess you know, recently I've been reading about the Warsaw Uprising once more, and I think the kind of the images that have been described there, kind of they also relate to like how Mariupol was described as also the city with absolutely no one kind of alive. Although obviously Warsaw is a lot bigger city than Mariupol, and like extreme amount of people were killed there. And so, like, do you have something in mind about like Polish art which reacted to the war kind of in a different way, or maybe in a similar way that you see right now in Ukrainian art?
And I'm sorry, also Ukrainian artists, because I know that you work a lot with them. Yeah.
I think I know more Ukrainian artists than Polish ones. But yeah. I think I remember something, but you know, some Polish artists who were doing art about war or in the context of war. There were more in literature, you know, more writers, but you know, usually it was like that you know, these works were visible after the war, and. But you know, when I wanted to talk, sorry, about something else, but you know, close to the topic, because last year in I don't remember, it was July or August, I was in Kiev, and met my friend who I haven't seen many years before pandemic. It was Jarosław Futymski, and we are talking about doing art now, you know, that time. And he said, and it was, you know, for me very strong that from the full-scale invasion, he couldn't do art, and you know, he was concentrated on helping refugees in Lviv, and then he was going around Kyiv to small towns and helping with friends to rebuild houses destroyed by Russians. And it was first person who told me that you know, it is difficult to do art that time. And then I met more artists who has similar you know, perspective. For instance, you know, to the exhibition which I mentioned with artists in the army, I invited Max Robotov, and you know, when he accepted the invitation to take part in the exhibition, he asked me, do I need artworks after 24th of February or just artworks? And I answered very quickly that after full-scale invasion, but it can be, you know, just artwork. And then I realized that from the beginning of the invasion, he was in the army. And he said that, you know, he didn't do any artworks that time. But and it was also, you know, interesting situation, because on the beginning I was thinking only about artists who are in the army, but he took a picture in time of blackout and sent to Lesia Homenko, his partner, and he painted two paintings with based on these photos, and he added the sun to the installation. So and for me it was, you know, also yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah, and okay, maybe Timur, maybe you could describe what was your like, because you're actually still practicing artist, albeit in very different conditions. But yeah, could you maybe in this context of like what the current position of artists, like describe what was your experience when you became a soldier, and like what changed? Obviously everything changed, but like in general, kind of how do you understand like your transformation as an artist, which happened like in the days of the full-scale invasion?
Well, thank you for the question. Sorry, I think because of the fact that I joined the military on after one day of war, basically on the 26th of February. I didn't really have a chance, I didn't really have any desire to make any art that was kind of after the beginning of the war, but still, you know, at home when I had my computer, my everything. So the only art that I have made during the war has been from my phone, basically, and a little bit from my laptop, because I got my laptop, you know, months ago, just recently. So it was 19 months without a laptop and just my phone, and then, you know, I got a laptop. And the most fundamental change, I think, has been the fact that before the war, I was making this kind of weird electronic music for, clubs. It is, experimental club, deconstructed club, whatever you want to call it. But it's a weird music that is not universally accepted, not universally loved, and there is a very special kind of young person who likes this kind of music. They usually spend a lot of time on the internet, usually are not politically active necessarily. They're just this kind of weird club goer who just likes this specific kind of music. And I used to make music like that. Now it feels very pointless because this music, all my artistry, it didn't save us. It didn't help. It didn't help Ukraine. It didn't really change anything. It was not important. It didn't speak to people about human qualities. It didn't speak to people about the importance of life and the difficulty of living next to Russia. It just did not do what I wish it had done. It had a big reach, and I had shows in Germany and in Europe, and I played in Belarus one time, which I now regret, because of course this is a country that allows Russian soldiers and Russian military to shell us and send rockets. And I think that my art could have been more useful, and it wasn't. Because the war was still going on. There was a war in the east of Ukraine. Russia invaded in 2014. And I sat in Kiev and made music that was, not identifiably Ukrainian and not specific to any kind of experience. It was just this abstract art that was kind of beautiful in and of itself, but it wasn't anything that affected the way people saw Ukraine. Maybe a little bit when they read my description and it said, "Oh, this guy's from Ukraine," whatever.
Yeah,
but generally, I feel I feel a little bit disappointed in the way that my art has, what the legacy of my art has been. So now I'm focusing more on the music that will be more specific to human emotion. I want to just write songs. I just want to sing and write songs and sing in Ukrainian about feelings and what's in my heart and what I have experienced. Sorry.
Yeah, and actually plays out into the...
Yeah, let's finish this talk with about art that is protect, because for sure we have soldiers, artists, our friends, colleagues, lovers, and etc., who is protecting us literally now. And can we think about art that can protect? And
if it doesn't exist, like
yes,
what that art could even be? Yeah.
Yeah, Tanya, I want you to start.
I'm not sure, we have artists who are protecting at the same time, but it's not the same thing of producing art or being an artist who is in the army, who is safe and protecting us. So it might be also, but I don't also think of art as a way of escapism, but also what Timur mentioned about this emotional things. I feel like also with every political turmoil and war, there is always a new wave of expressionism, and it's somehow how art reflects the situation, but I don't believe in art that protect. I mean, it's very difficult experiences when you're talking physically about fragility and fragility of a human life, and when you are talking from a safe position. For me, it's very, very, very vulnerable really to answer. And ideally thinking, yes, it might protect, but being in danger, yeah, it's something that you can probably dream of, or art is a dream, but not as a form of escapism.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can I say something?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I just had this funny thought that the art that protects is maybe it's the kind of Ukrainian techno music that was written by certain producers who after the war have left the country and are now playing, in Europe and will not return to Ukraine. But their techno is protecting them. Their music is kind of protecting them because they are musicians, and so they can they can kind of emigrate and decide to protect themselves from the war.
Yeah, so actually maybe art can protect, but it cannot protect a lot of people, yeah.
it cannot protect someone else. That's my impression, because I feel like my art did not protect anyone. I tried, I did electronic music to the best of my ability, and it didn't matter. It didn't matter. Russians still came and started killing us, And when I was there, sitting in a trench and looking into the trees, and I saw a Russian sniper aiming at me, it doesn't matter. Like, it just doesn't help. It wouldn't protect me. Nothing would have saved me except that I dug down and I kind of dialed the coordinates to our artillery, and of course they send a shell towards the trees, and there was no longer a Russian sniper there. But you see, like, the art didn't protect me, and it didn't protect my relatives and my friends and my loved ones and the people and my soldiers with me in my brigade. And I'm not sure if there was a type of art that I could have made, because I think the only art that adequately expresses the pain and the anger can only be created later. Can only be created either after a long period of war or after the victory. That's my feeling, because you cannot create the protective art preemptively. We couldn't create it before the invasion, because we knew that the invasion. We knew that the invasion was going to happen, right? But we couldn't write the songs or write the poems or the paintings. It wouldn't feel right, and people wouldn't believe us. It wouldn't save anyone, So maybe after the war, but then after the war, there's no one to save, Luckily, the war will be over, and so I'm not sure if I can imagine such a thing.
Yeah, but Waldemar,
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Waldemar, perhaps you as a performance artist, and I guess someone who is very close to the topic of of protection in the most kind of intimate way.
Movement, yeah.
Maybe you will provide a kind of another perspective, or perhaps I guess you maybe agree as well. Yeah, with this pessimistic or realistic opinion. Yeah.
I had the idea how to answer, but you changed my. But okay, but I think that I don't know can protect or cannot, but I'm sure that can be testimony, and it is a very important function, and can be also a tool to fight. And I think that I, as a curator or as a person working in the gallery, can use art as a tool, simply.
Yeah, but as a tool which does what? Which protects or which achieves some goal, kind of more abstract goals?
I don't know. I was talking about it, and I was talking about it yesterday. That visibility and how to use this visibility.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and maybe investigate somehow to recreate something. Yeah, Tatiana.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, not to be that pessimistic. Art can communicate and basically can sustain this visibility, because I also thinking that by communication, art can be also a tool of resistance. And now I'm thinking about example of, for example, Zhana Kadyrova in her work, when she's making additional one work, which is called Polyanitsa, and is very complex context around this work, because Polyanitsa is a word which it means bread, and the Russians cannot pronounce it in a good way. Basically what she made, she's producing editions of different forms of Polyanitsa when she creates bread out of river stone, but she makes multiple editions, and every edition is being sold, and all money that she gets, she's sacrificing to the front. So basically art becomes also, yeah, it's resistance, but at the same time it's becoming a real practical support of the army and resistance.
Yeah, so perhaps like arts
Kilo for 1,000 euro.
can protect us if it's when it
Yes. Yes.
when it leaves kind of the pure artistic sphere and it enters the market sphere. Yeah, surprisingly.
Okay, exactly. Thank you very much, and thank you for listening. If you have some questions, you can ask us. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you very much.
And I think most importantly, yeah, like I would also want to thank, like, thank you for listening, but I would also like to thank from ourselves, the armed forces of Ukraine, first and foremost, yeah, for kind of also for protecting us in the most literal way, obviously us as Ukrainians, but in an indirect way, all of us as well. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.